All right, regular knife people. This is the regular guy back for some more regular guy knife videos. Give me just a sec. Bow, bow, get out of here. Go chew on your bone. Go get. Sorry, I'm just a regular guy and I'm shooting in my living room here. So the family dog has chosen this moment to eat his oinky directly underneath me. So hopefully I've shooed him away, right? That's the last thing we want to hear is him crunching his way through some rawhide, right? All right. So, this video thing, right? It's kind of taken on a life of its own, and it's starting to become a another unwanted hobby, right? I just think I get my video quality part down, right? I get the lighting taken care of, and the sound is killing me, right? Um, yeah, I've been through on my I've been through three microphone setups now. Back to the original because my last two pieces of junk acquired from Amazon have both quit first time out of the box. So this is this is gonna be take like 8 or 9 on this video. So let's just hope this time there's some audio, that we can at least understand. Um, I think I'm gonna have to finally grin and bear it, put off a knife purchase or two, and actually pick up a good high quality recording mic if videotaping here is doing YouTube videos is something I want to continue doing into the future. Yeah. So, anyways, getting down to the guts of this video here, right? So this is the video I wanted to do, or at least this is the video I wanted to see, and this is the topic that really inspired me to start doing some videos on YouTube. I kind of wanted to get my setup down better, but before I made this video because it's kind of that important to me, or at least the subject is that important to me. But I can't keep putting it off, right? I don't want to disappoint my nine subscribers here by delaying any more for getting this video out. So yeah, so you can kind of tell here sitting before you, right, or maybe you get the gist, right? Is this is going to be on the Spyderco Autonomy too, okay? Um, by far one of my favorite Spyderco knives ever, um, and easily my favorite automatic knife ever manufactured. And we'll go into the reasons why here. And I also don't feel like this knife actually gets its proper due, right? I think with a lot of the styles of knife reviews today, right? They're pumping them out there, they're getting them through. They don't have the time really to spend and dedicate to get to know a knife, right? To really appreciate the knife, for what it is. And the autonomy too just kind of seems to be one of those knives, man. It just kind of falls between the couch cushions, so to speak, and I don't think it gets appreciated for what it is. Um, and hopefully here after I go a bit into some of the features of this knife and some of the things that make this a truly unique auto, man. Maybe you'll agree with me, right? Um, so this is the Autonomy 2, right? It's a cell glisser design, right? Which the blade shape totally gives away. If you are unfamiliar with Mr. Glesser's work, then and you're into knives, man, shame on you, right? That this guy is Spyderco, right? I mean, if he has so many iconic designs out there, right? I mean, who doesn't have a PM2 in their collections right now, right? Sell, right? The damn Spidey hole, right? The one thing that makes the Spyderco, so iconic, right? The Spidey hole. Sell Glessers, right? He patented that thing. Hell, the pocket clip on the knife, right? The ubiquitous pocket clip. That is a patent belonging to Mr. Glesser, right? You know, his body of work is legendary, and I think the Autonomy 2 is right up there, you know, as some of his best work. Just a quick some deets on this guy, real quick. Overall length of this guy is 8.4 inches, you know, or slightly more. It's got a blade length of 3.5 inches. Um, you know, it's roughly five and a half ish ounces, right? You know, in there in that area, and it has a closed length of 4.94 inches. Okay. So a bit on the bigger side, a bit on the heftier side, right? But it is an automatic, and as we'll discuss as we go along here, right? This is based on a knife that was designed for a very specific purpose, right? And this is just kind of an adaptation, a more civilian friendly adaptation of that, right? Um, Blades in LC 200, right? Absolutely amazing knife steel. This stuff is crazy corrosion resistant, right? Maybe not the hardest, right? Maybe not the most durable of knife steels, right? But it's that's not what the steel was specifically designed for, right? It was meant to be a good, right, knife steel that is essentially stain and corrosion proof, right? That'll withstand the harsh salt environments, right? Which is what the original Autonomy one was designed for, right? The U.S. Coast Guard had approached Spyderco, Mr. Glesser, and they needed a you know, they needed an automatic, right? They needed an automatic, big giant button they could easily mash wearing a big thick glove, right? They needed an automatic for their rescue swimmers. You know, no safety, no pocket clip. It was designed to fit into a special pocket in their vest. And and yeah, you know, it was designed for a very specific purpose. As well as one of the main requirements for that knife is that it had to be user maintainable, right? That means that not only was it easy to take apart, right? It was encouraged by the the manufacturers, right? That the knife be disassembled and easily maintained by the end user, right? There's not any other autos that come to mind that are where you're encouraged to disassemble them by the manufacturer, right? Um, you can still procure, right, the Autonomy automatic knife spring replacement kit from Spyderco. It costs $20. Comes with the special tool. Comes with two mainsprings. I unfortunately only have one because the other one is currently hiding under a piece of furniture somewhere. Comes with a blade guard so you don't cut your finger off, some thread locker, and an Allen driver, right? Oh, and a new pivot screw. Okay, as well as the instructions. We're not going to pull out the instructions and go over it. They're pretty basic, and there's one point in here where I'm a little confused. It tells you to turn while reinstalling the main spring cap. It tells you to do 90 degrees clockwise. How we do this or how we reassemble this knife, that will not work. I'm not sure how they're orientating the knife. It's even orientated in the picture. Clockwise is the wrong direction. It's got to be counterclockwise. Now, it might have been clockwise on the original Autonomy, since changed on the Autonomy 2, but seeing as how the mainspring works, I kind of doubt that. So either they're holding it a different way. Um, yeah, no, you'll see. We'll be turning it counterclockwise, and I'll point that out again when we get to that part. Yeah, and just a quick little PSA. Okay, so this knife is pretty sparse when it comes to parts, and you'll see that as we take it apart, right? But keep in mind, I've taken this knife apart, you know, 10 times. Okay, so it may look easy for me now. You know, I don't expect it to come apart and go back together this easy for you. Okay, it takes a little bit of practice. It takes a little bit of feel, right? You know, for you to kind of understand how all the parts fit and operate together. So if it takes you a couple of hours to get the thing back together, you know, get it to finally click into place, you know, don't feel bad, don't feel frustrated, right? It took me a couple hours the first time too, right? Then I've kind of figured it out. I got the feel for it, and now it's, you know, nothing. Now, when we get to actually reinstalling the mainspring cap, I'm going to leave that real time. I'm not going to do any editing. I might get it in the first try. It might take me 20 or 30 minutes, and we'll get 2 or 3 beers into this video before we get it reassembled. It's just kind of the nature of the beast and how the mainspring cap works with the mainspring, and you'll see that, right? It's just, yeah, it's just one of those things. Sometimes I get it first shot. Sometimes it takes me 15, 20 tries to get it. So yeah, so we'll get the kit out of the way here for a sec, and we'll just kind of go over some external features of this knife, right? Um, Obviously, the 300-pound gorilla in the room, right, is that firing button, and that's generally right where most reviews start and stop on this knife, right? Is they look at that massive firing button, right, and it's just you can't get past it, right? Yeah, to each his own, right? Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I personally like it, right? I have never. You're going to find that button come hell or high water, right? You're going to reach into that pocket, and your thumb is immediately going to locate it. It is big. It is huge. It is a massive feature of the knife, right? You are going to hit that button, and because of that huge cutout, man, you are going to get it. Your thumb is not going to slip off. This knife is not going to fail to fire if you do your part, right? The other thing it does is it shields the front. You can kind of see that, right? It sits up higher than the safety, but it prevents you from accidentally knocking the safety off when you slide this knife into your pocket, right? Yes, it's got a safety. With the oomph this thing flicks out there, I kind of like to have a safety on it, especially with this big old pocket, because you're going to lean into something, you're going to mash that button in your pocket, and you're going to open it up, and then what happens from there, right, is the stuff of knife legends, right? So I do kind of appreciate that this knife has a safety, and if it's going to have a safety, it's got to be a good safety, right? It it takes a much more deliberate action to engage this safety than it does to disengage it, right? Which is kind of what you want, right? Because you wanted a conscious effort that you're going to put this knife on safe, but then you wanted as effortlessly as possible to disengage that safety. And so it does that. And it's kind of weird how to do it. Maybe it's just the angle, it's the where it's in relation to the button. I don't know, right? But for me, it takes a much more deliberate action to engage that safety than it does to disengage it, and I really appreciate that. Another thing you're going to see when you get in here, and you can kind of get a sneak peek at it here from the back, right? It's just got this leaf spring in here, right? The firing button is on a leaf spring. It's on a section of the liner has been cut loose like for a leaf spring, just like a liner lock or the compression lock, right? And that is actually what provides the spring force for the firing button, right? The only coil spring in this knife is the mainspring, right? So gone are their days, where that coil spring gets all rusted and corroded and crunched underneath your firing button, right? You can't get in there and maintain it, and it rusts out. So I really, really, really appreciate, that that feature. Plus, as you see, when we take it apart, it reduces the parts count, right? It makes this a much simpler knife to assemble and disassemble to clean and maintain, and I really appreciate that, especially on an auto knife, right? Because that's like that's what's anthema, to autos: pocket lint, sand, grit, right? These things they get gummed up and they fail, right? And this knife, this design, that wasn't acceptable, right? This knife had to work when that rescue swimmer, when he mashed the button, it had to come flying out and be available to, I don't, cut netting or rope, whatever rescue swimmers need a knife for, right? Parachute lines, I'm not sure, right? But this knife was a no fail, right? Oh, before I forget to mention it, right? You can see I got that big bright green button insert. I believe the company is called Rolling Thunder. I believe it was Rolling Thunder. I'm so bad about remembering the names of this stuff. Um, yeah, it was like $12, right? Glows in the dark. It had a little slot in there for gluing a tritium vial in, and so of course I glued a tritium vial in there, because who doesn't want a radioactive glow in the dark? Spyderco, right? Automatic Spyderco at that. All right, so let's get into this guy, right? Um, Almost all the hardware, with the exception of these two little screws, which are just they're essentially they're just holding the scale to the liner. All the rest of the hardware, body hardware anyway, is T8, and the pivot is a T10. So nice, good, you know, massive hardware, right? So we start this disassembly out, knife open, all right, clip side up, and the first thing we want to do is we want to take that pivot pin out. We're going to take that and remove the pivot screw, and we're going to remove the cap here, mainspring cap. So knife screw comes right out. Obviously, nice big monstrous screw there. We're going to fish our little tool out of the bag. Not that we need it. The instructions say you can pick the mainspring cap off with your fingertips. That is not going to happen. At least I haven't ever been able to do it with mine. I have this little tool here. It's for opening. I think it's for opening watch case backs, but it works fine for this. I just kind of work it around the edge, just kind of slowly levering up. It's not under a bunch of spring pressure, so it's not going to come flinging off across the room. But I just want to capture it because this part is not included in the repair parts kit, and I'd be kind of brokenhearted if I lost it. But if you just kind of lever it, it'll eventually come up, right? And then that's it. So there you go. You got some dog hair and schmutz worked in there, of course, because if you own dogs, there's nowhere you're not going to get dog hair, right? We got the mainspring cap, and we got the mainspring. Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna grab a swab here to get some of this oil out, just to clean it up. The kind of the It's got some holes in it that you can dribble oil into, and I think the temptation is there to overdo it, and I think I overdo it quite often when it comes to oil in this thing, because it's I'll just dribble a little bit down each hole, and then it turns into me actually flooding this knife out. But just so I don't get it all over my fingers and get it all over everything else, I'm just gonna kind of wipe some of that off real quick. All right. So then we got the T8 hardware. Now there's only two screws here that we're going to remove. Okay, there's these two body screws here, and both of these are T8. Now keep in mind that because that firing button is sprung, right, when you start loosening these screws, the two halves of the knife are going to want to fly apart. So you're going to have to maintain just a little bit of pressure. I usually just kind of keep my thumb right here in the pocket clip, and we'll go ahead and take off the front one first. All right, it's good and loose. All right, you bastard, you can stay there. Keep some pressure on there and take off the rear. Now keep in mind, you're going to have a couple of parts going to want to come flying out of this knife first thing, right? You've got the lanyard hold liner, and then you've got the blade stop pin. Okay, and neither one of those really is kind of a loose fit in the knife, so they generally fall out on their own. Okay, now once you get the knife to this point to where the two halves are separated, okay, you want to pull back, pulling the clip side of the scale away from the lanyard tube, and then you're going to want to pull it straight back towards you, and that'll disengage it from the firing button, and the knife will split apart, right? And there we go. That is it. Right? Very, very, very low parts count, right, for an automatic. Right? Anybody that may or may not have seen somebody or experienced getting into a microtech, right, will know the sometimes the ungodly parts count that an auto knife can have, right? This guy is pretty simple. All the parts are large-ish, right? Nothing too crazy, right? You got this massive button. That is a lot of steel locking that blade open, right? This is not going to be a button lock that fails on you. It is monstrous. That is a lot of metal. Okay. The inside of the scales here, you can kind of see what's going on. There's the spring, right? There's that leaf spring, right? Cut right out of the scale, just like a liner lock or maybe a compression lock, right? Now you can take the safety off, but it's just a simple little sliding plate, right? And it's captured in between the scale and the liner here, and then it has just that little bit of that little detent there to give it that clicking open, clicking closed action, right? Um, I've taken it apart once. I don't feel the need to take it apart again. You'll notice kind of the color on the pivot here, and I'm not 100% sure why that's so dark, why that's black. I don't know if it is a component, if it was a finish put on there because it's a higher carbon steel, and that's like a like a diamond like finish to prevent corrosion. But yeah, it is definitely metal, and it's a hard metal, and that finish is pretty damn hard too because it's still there. There is one one bushing, right? One a washer, and that is on the show side of the scale. There isn't one on the clip side, right? It only rides on one bronze washer. This side, it's got the spring and everything else going on, and I imagine that maybe having a bronze washer on this side wouldn't do a damn bit of good, and so they just left it out, right? Uh, got that ubiquitous lanyard tube, right? Except on this knife, it actually just slips in and falls out. Not the not like the PM2 PM3 requiring a special tool to punch it out, right? Tiny little blade pin, right? Just drops in there and drops out, and then of course the blade, and then that's it, right? That's the whole knife. There's not much to it, right? It's a very simple, very straightforward, very ingenious design. There is no closed lockwork mechanisms on this knife to actually trap sand or trap gunk, right? If you got to, you just shake it out in a mud puddle, knock all the dirt out, and then the knife's probably good to go, right? Very, very, very well thought out. Now, there's companies out there like Hawk, right, producing the mud, right, and it's a hermetically sealed knife essentially, right, and that's one way, right, but there's always that chance for leaks, right. I would much rather a design that allows me to either a quickly clean it out, right, or b do a quick field disassembly here, wipe everything down, and then reassemble it. Right? There's no chance for a rubber seal to fail or a rubber button cover to tear through or not. And don't get me wrong. Hawk makes a outstanding knife, and they ought to. For the price of those knives. Right? This guy, I think it was right at $235, right? so so right at a higher end PM2 PM3 price range, right? I've got a whole slew of Spydercos that I've paid a lot more for than what I paid for this knife. For an American made, automatic from a company that doesn't produce that many automatics, man. I mean, this is a pretty it's not that this is a rare knife. It comes up for sale, here and there. It's a lot like some of their other lower run knives, that come out in fits and starts, and you miss it and you got to wait 6 months until it comes back around again. But it's by no means is it a rarity, right? You can find these knives out there brand new, for under $300. That's boom, right? Just off the price and the pedigree alone, it's a knife you should have in your collection. Notwithstanding the fact of how well this knife performs, right? If you can foresee yourself needing an automatic, right? Where you actually have a need to carry an automatic, not just to amaze and astound your non-knife friends at the bar, right? Then this is the automatic you should have, right? This is the automatic you should have in your pocket. If you're in a situation where you need a automatic, then chances are you can't afford for that knife to not work, right? You can't afford for that knife to fail. and this is that knife, right? And it's under $3, and it comes with a pretty cool freaking steel, right? And it's user serviceable, and the user serviceable parts are cheap. It's $20, right? And you can get, I mean, for $40 you get two of these kits. That's four mainsprings. That's a lifetime of servicing this knife. I mean, how often are mainsprings going to wear out on you, right? So I've always felt that this is a very, very underrated knife, and I've always felt like this knife has never really got its proper due. And that's just how it is, right? You can't you can't review every knife every time exhaustively, right? Fortunately for me, I can sit and stew on this for a while and then make a grunge video, right? Because I didn't feel like that knife got its just desserts, right? So finally, here you go. This is the topic that I couldn't find on YouTube, right? And that is a disassembly of the Autonomy 2, and then hopefully here, we'll put it back together, and you can all see it work, right? Right. Oh, it is. It is right. Yeah, it is Saturday night. So yeah. So I'm going to enjoy some oat sodas here while we do this. All right. So how I like to disassemble this, right? We're going to start with the show side. We're going to get the firing button kind of through there, and then we're going to get the blade put on. And as you can see, there's a bit of a cutout in that button, and so what it is that blade will kind of lock that button into place. Excuse me. So don't worry about alignment yet. That'll kind of work its way out once we start putting this knife together. But so long as you've got that blade in there, and the back of the blade here is catching that firing button, then you're straight. Now at this time, right? I'm telling you now, at this time, put the damn stop pin in, because this is the part you'll always forget. I always forget the damn stop pin, right? And I'll get it back together, and I'll be patting myself on the back, and then I'll notice, my unauthorized factory modification here, and I left the part out. Okay, so put the damn stop pin in, right? The next thing we want to put the damn lanyard tube in. That is another part you'll forget to put in until the very end. I do it every time. Okay, so now with the lanyard tube and the blade stop pin, all right, we can go ahead and put the clip side scale back in. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get the very front nose of this leaf spring into that notch, or into that notched hole here into the firing button. Okay, so you just slide that in there until you're over the firing button, and then we can start working the two halves together. Okay. Now the tube, and the lanyard tube, and the blade stop, or the pin here, will do a really good job of lining these two sections up, right? Because you don't have the other side of the pivot, right? There's the pivot is only on that one side until we get the mainspring cap on. So the only way to line the two halves of the scales up is with the lanyard tube and the blade stop pin. Now this again, these halves are under that spring pressure from that leaf spring, so you got to hold it together. Okay, so keeping pressure, keeping those two halves together. We're going to put the body screws back in. I always start with the rear one. No particular reason. I just do. We'll start and we'll get that screw in there, right? Because the way the pivot on this works, right, it's a lot different. We're not going to worry about blade centering, right? Because it's not as affected by how the two halves of the knives fit together. So just go ahead and tighten those body screws in, right? Normally I leave them slightly loose until I get the pivot right. Then I tighten the body screws all the way, and then I start worrying about this blade centering. But that's not an issue on this knife because of the way it's constructed. All right, now we got those two screws tightened up. We've got the halves of the knife back together. All right, we're going to start with the blade fully out and locked. You can check the action if you want. It feels kind of weird though without that spring in there. It doesn't operate very well. Okay, So now we're going to take our spring. Okay, you'll notice there's a little tit here, a little bit pointing down. That is the bottom of the spring, and that little protrusion right here, that is the top side of the spring. Inside there, you'll see, if you can see, maybe there's a little hole in the blade, and that's what engages the little tit there on the mainspring. So we're just going to get the mainspring in there, get that little tit fit in the hole, right, and we're left with that, right. Now here's the part where all this could break down on us. Okay, inside that mainspring cap, right, there's that notch. Okay, that little tiny notch, right, that engages with the little crossbar here on this little protrusion on the mainspring, right? And it is required that you drop this cap on so that that little notch is engaged by that little crossbar, okay? Simple process, right? At least it sounds that way, okay? This is the part that can take me, 2 tries or 200 tries to get right. It just, sometimes I get it the first time, sometimes it takes me forever. But just keep at it, right? You will eventually get it in there. There's no real architecture here on the outside of the cap that works as a visual aid in lining this up. And I kind of think that's where one of the, if I have a complaint about this knife, it's it, right? If they would have just engraved maybe a little line or a little arrow showing you which way that notch is orientated, I think this would be a much easier process. But as it is, we're kind of in between those two holes, but then again, we're not. It's slightly further one side or the other. So we just kind of got to have to look at it and just keep trying to attempt it until we get it right. And you'll know if you get it right, and you'll know if you get it wrong. Okay. So maybe we got it right. We're going to turn this. Now, if you feel that spring pressure when you go to start turning counterclockwise, then you know you got it. I feel it, and it'll drop down. All right. So that cap clicked into place, but it's loose, so I know we didn't get it. Right. And we'll keep doing that. And like I said, I'm not gonna edit this video because, one, that takes too long, and two, I want you guys to see real time, right, how long it takes somebody that's done this 50 times already to get this right. Right. I don't want you to sit here and struggle with this for an hour and think that you're just not doing it right. It's just the way this knife works, right? Giant pain in the ass sometimes. Right. And I didn't get it. I've thought about maybe going past, like, going past that, and maybe if I turn it on there, it'll fall in on its own. And no, it don't. It won't. Nothing works other than hitting it dead nuts on. All right, I don't think I got it. I did not. So we'll keep struggling at this, and I'll keep drinking my beer. And if I get close to the bottom, then I'll send the boy child out for another one. But we're gonna stay here till we get this cap on. And maybe if we get too deep into this, and 3 or 4 beers in before we finally get this cap on, then we can have a sing along, right? Maybe some sea shanties or something. But other than sitting on the edge of your seat waiting for me to start screaming obscenities and throwing this across the living room, right? This is as exciting as it's going to get for for the next couple of minutes. I apologize, but like I said, I just, the first time I did this, man, I thought I had destroyed my knife. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was upset. I thought I had ruined it. I left it sit here on the old bench of healing for a day or two, and then I came back to it, and then it just went back together, right? And I was upset because that's how the knife was designed, right? I don't think I got it, but we'll see. Nope, I for sure didn't get it. All right, we'll get her. You just kind of gotta hit it dead right on, and it's not like flat, and it likes to wiggle around a little bit when you're putting the cap on. So it's just like there's just no like intentional way to do this, right? It's all just by sheer luck that those two pieces go together. Sometimes you can wiggle it and you can feel it catch. Other times, nah. Maybe we're seated, maybe we're not. You know, that didn't feel particularly good, but you know, who knows? Nope. Try again. And this will go on, right? So I guess while you're watching me do this here, I can talk about other knife subjects, right? I don't think I have to. You don't need blow by blow commentary watching me do the same damn thing over and over and over again until I get it right. Maybe if we, I don't know, maybe if we just slightly chamfered, the opening there. Maybe I got in there with a little bit like a Dremel bit, and just kind of wedged it out a little bit, because it still sits in there pretty damn deep, right? But I think that chamfer would make it a little bit easier to capture the end of that spring. But that'll be a that'll be a project for another day. For now we're just gonna try to just get it back together again so I can prove to you that it can be done, right? But so I'm probably gonna do a video here soon on mid-techs. Um, just kind of going over them. We'll talk about mid-techs. We'll talk about the options out there. Who's making mid-techs? What a mid-tech is. I had a recent purchase experience, right, with a very with a mid-tech company, or a company that primarily makes mid-techs, right? And in case you don't know, a mid-tech is a production part based knife, with custom features, right? You pick the colors, you pick the grind, you make that knife yours from the manufacturer, as opposed to you adding parts down the road. Now, and where that line is drawn, I'm not sure. Like, I know that the Hinderer is a production. They're a production knife, but the blade styles that are available, the scale styles that are available, the colors for the anodizing that are available, all the customizing parts that they sell, their different colored screws and standoffs and yada yada yada. I mean, that knife is going to be your knife, right? With some extra money spent. So in my mind, it is kind of a mid tech. But anyways, I had an experience with it with a company. I spent a ridiculous amount of money on their knife, and and I expected a hell of a lot more than what I got. Not just some fancy anodizing and some fancy finishing on the titanium, but I expected a knife, equal to the value of what I spent on it, and that knife was not it. It was amateur hour. Terrible. You guys, I've expressed it before, right? My biggest peeve is shit hardware, right? A knife is going to be, if it's a knife that's going to be owned by a knife person, right? A high dollar knife is going to be a knife person, right? Nobody buys the one and only knife, and it's some high dollar knife, right? You people that are buying those knives are knife enthusiasts, right? They're going to take the damn thing apart, right? Put some high quality hardware. When I say high quality, I mean it was all T6 hardware, right? So little guys, itty bitty 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 T6, little itty bitty guys, right? And it was loose. It was not even good T6 hardware. There was like an eighth of a turn in there between the actual bit would engage, right? It was terrible hardware. It was guaranteed to strip out, and it was going to strip out at some point. And maybe that's why the knife was shipped to me with all the hardware loose already. Um, and because because it's a custom finished knife, all the hardware's finished to match. You dick that screw up, there's no replacing it, right? You're out. You're hosed, right? And all that money you invested in the knife is out. And that wasn't the only thing, right? There was a lot of issues I had with that knife. There were action issues, and And generally speaking, things like issues with the grind, or issues with the edge, I don't care, right? I sharpen knives. I'll fix it. Um, One of my favorite, I have a Medford that was probably a Friday knife. It came with bearings locked up and blue Loctite. The edge had been overworked, like the last one third of that edge had overworked, and it had immediately rolled over the first time I went to cut something with it. And not as expensive. Now, keep in mind, this Medford was a lot less expensive than what I had paid for this current knife. Um, and yeah, and I don't care, right? I swapped the bearings out for some skiffs. I cleaned the blue Loctite that had gotten underneath the standoffs and was causing some weird clearance issues, and I resharpened the goddamn knife, right? To me, you know, did it pique me a little bit? Sure, right? I mean, for the money I spent for that knife, it should have been, perfect. But big deal, right? I'm a knife guy. I sharpen my knives, right? I take my knives apart. It wasn't much to fix it, and it was probably all those issues was probably due to just a few minutes of inattentiveness, right? And it didn't ruin the knife, right, at all. So I corrected it, and I've got no heartburn whatsoever, and I have no issues, you know, suggesting a Medford as your unicorn knife, right? I love their company. I love that company. I love the products that they make. I've had some interactions with them, not customer service based. Look, I guess you could say customer service, because I was reaching out to them to let them know how well done I thought one of their knives were, because we don't do enough of that, right? We're quick to jump on people for the shit they did wrong, but we're pretty slow to pat them on the back when they do something right. So I always try to make it an effort to reach out to these companies. I think when they do something that's, when I feel that knife is above and beyond, when it's a bit more of a value than I initially thought, when I thought that they just kind of, when they just kind of just made that knife, when it all just kind of came together, I want to send them a note, right? I want to say thank you, right? And I've done that to a few different knife companies, Medford, and Hinderer. Medford was a little bit unique because it was a particular knife that I thought I got it for a lot cheaper than what those knives should have been selling at. And it was a gorgeous knife, and I bought it at a time when I was really low, when I was really down. It was the 1 year anniversary of a pretty traumatic point in my life, and just that little bit, right? Just that little surprise, that little bit that I hadn't been counting on, right? It just kind of raised me up, right? And it got me through the week. And so I reached out to them, and I let them know, and I believe in Amy Medford, Greg Medford's wife, got back to me, and there was some very very pleasant emails back and forth. There was an offer to do some laser engraving on the knife to commemorate it, and I chose not to pursue it, but still, absolutely amazing, because that's not what you hear about Medford, right? You always hear about how terrible Greg is, or how shitty his political views are, but for all of us that live in Arizona, he is he is not any different than most of us. So there's that. All right, and I think I got it, because I feel some spring tension there, and I'm 100% wrong. So so maybe we won't see this knife put together on this video, and I'll have to prove that I did it, on next video, because I'm gonna run out of memory on my phone before we get this going. But yeah, so same thing. I've had some interaction with Hinderer. I've had some interaction with some different companies, and I've always had really positive interaction. Now I've heard this company that I had issues with their knife. I've heard that they have really great, outstanding customer service, and that's really all you ever hear about this company, right? It's how great their customer service is, never how great their product is, right? Just how great their customer service is, which, in my opinion, you shouldn't need super great customer service if you're making decent knives, right? You don't need it. There, we got it. All right. So we are in, right? Now, I always have a hell of a time getting this thing seated all the way down. And so what I like to do is I've got this little watchmaker's hammer here. It costs like $2. Came in the same kit as that case back opener does. I like to give it a couple smacks with the nylon side there. And we are 100% seated down. Right now, before we go thinking with it and shooting something across the room, right? Let's get the pivot screw in there. Again, T10. All right. Now that you're not going to tune this knife, you're not going to tune this pivot like you do with a standard knife, really. This just holds this shit together, right? That's really all it's there for. You'll know if you over tighten it, right? But there's no reason to run this thing loose. The pivot don't work that way. Now, usually on the first try, the button's usually a little bit stiff. Uh-oh. What did I do? So we will loosen that up. There we go. And everything is lined up. I know that was I know that thunk is a little bit concerning, but it always does that. All right. So we got the pivot where I think it should be. Fires off. Check it for tightness. It is loose. So let's get a little bit of that wobble out. All right. I just get it tight to where there's no wobble. The knife fires just as hard either way. All right, let's see if we're lined up. Yeah, we're mostly centered. It's an auto. All right, I'm not going to sweat it. Safety works, and there you go. Right. I'd like to say voila. Right, that was a bit painful, but you see what I mean, right? It's just that one little action, right? It's just getting that cap to line up, those that little notch to grab that little lock bar there on the spring. That's just kind of the where shit breaks down and falls apart, right? But yeah, maybe I will try chamfering that hole out or that notch out just to make it a little bit easier to grab that part of the spring. But yeah, maybe I won't, right? I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, as I was saying, we'll probably do another video here soon. We'll probably do it on some mid-techs. I just kind of want to, I want to talk about it because, goddamn gas, man, was like close. It's getting on close $5 out here for us, right? Being where I live in the great state of Arizona, right? Those aren't prices that we're accustomed to. Okay. And I know people in other parts of the United States, right? Or they're like, oh, that's what gas used to be when Cokes were a nickel, right? No, gas has never been ever been that high out here, and it is, right? Food's getting expensive, electricity's getting everything's getting expensive, right? And we don't need knives, right? Well, I don't need knives. I mean, you need a knife, but I mean, this is essentially a disposable hobby, right? This is transitory joy, right? But you can't eat a knife, right? You can't drive a knife, and as my wife reminds me, you can't sleep with a knife, right? So maybe you don't need to spend money on it, right? So we know that's not possible, right? When you're an addict, right? Right? You gotta keep the monkey fed, right? So you're gonna buy knives, right? And so we need to be a bit smarter, right, about the knives we're purchasing, right? Because also keep in mind, it's hard on us right now. It's hard on those manufacturers, right? It's hard on those makers. I'm sure Greg Medford's sweating it a little bit right now, right? Because the dude's got employees. He's got people who rely on his company to keep food on their table, right? And if we want these makers to be here in a year, then we're gonna have to keep patronizing them, right? And that's not to say this isn't welfare, right? This is right. That's how our systems work, right? That's how our system works, right? That's how we work. But then again, we're human beings and we have compassion, right? And so those You know, you think about the joy that these simple tools, bring you, right? And so think about the people that make them, right? And if we want to see them here in a few years, down the road. um so we've got to be smarter. We're gonna have to think a little bit harder about our knife purchases. I for one will not be purchasing any more direct manufactured by China knives. There will be no more Wies or Civivis or Kaisers, right? If a knife graces my bench or my video, it will be not produced in China, right? I mean, I got it. There's companies OEM their parts, and I'm not going to dig that far down into the weeds, and maybe that makes me a hypocrite, but fine, right? But I'm not going to intentionally buy a knife from a Chinese company, because, as we all know, they're owned by their government, right? And we're just not going to do that anymore. So for now, we're going to try to stick to American-made knives. And yeah, sure, there'll be some, especially Spyderco's with their Taichung Taiwan knives, right? Beautiful knives. I've got a baker's dozen, right? That's fine. Or ADV, which I think has some of their parts, OEM'd by China. But the vast majority of that labor, vast majority of that work is benefiting him and his people in South Africa, right? And I don't feel the same economic threat, say from a South African company, as I would feel from a Chinese company. And so there's 100 good makers out there, American makers, and maybe instead of, if we want a cheap fix, maybe we start looking at Kershaw, right, or CRKT, right? Plenty of Gerbers are made in America, right? Zero tolerance, right? Awesome, mid-priced, excellent damn knives. I think we have enough domestic manufacturers. Hogue, another great company, right? The Deca is an absolutely fantastic knife. Maybe we'll cover that. It's not a knife I look forward to disassembling. I think it's got a few too many parts for my taste, but still a fantastic knife. But maybe we keep we maybe we focus on home, and we keep these knife makers alive. We keep them going, because this would be a dramatic tragedy, right? To lose some of our great designers and great designs, and watch companies go under. While we talk about the quality and the value of our $150 Chinese marble, right? So yep, that's just my thoughts on it. Finally got this video out. Obviously, the cap took a little bit longer than I thought, so it allowed me to drink enough beer to get a little bit of model in there at the end. But yeah, you could always turn the video off, right? So yeah, I appreciate it, and I appreciate all you regular knife people. You know, spending another evening with me, feeding that addiction vicariously through my efforts here, and yeah, and to my massive army of 9 subscribers. I greatly appreciate it. And I really like to thank you, and hopefully here shortly we're gonna get this goddamn audio thing figured the fuck out. I'm tired of it. I'll just grin and bear it, and I'll get a decent mic, and we'll fix this. All right. But yeah, so thanks for coming along. This is a regular guy in the Regular Guy Knife channel, and I wish you a good night.